After securing a sweeping victory in the U.S. presidential elections, Donald Trump is building his team for his second term at the White House. Trump is likely to nominate Marco Rubio as Secretary of State. The Florida-born politician will be the first Latino to serve as America's top diplomat. He has staked out a position as a foreign policy hawk, taking hard lines on China, Iran, Venezuela, as well as Cuba. Rubio has been among the most outspoken senators on the need for the United States to be more aggressive on China. If he becomes the Secretary of State, the crucial question is whether he will forego U.S. interventions in parts of the world to prioritize China. That approach will align with Trump's America First ideas. Reports say Trump has picked Republican Representative Mike Waltz to be his national security advisor. Waltz has served in the National Guard as a colonel. He has earlier criticized Chinese activities in the Asia-Pacific and has also voiced the need for the United States to be ready for a potential conflict in the region. Waltz is also the co-chairman of the India Caucus. He has advocated for advancing defense and security cooperation with India, calling it the most important partnership for the U.S. in the 21st century. He's a staunch proponent of better ties with India to counter China. Last year, during a visit to India, he spoke to WION on a range of issues, including the Chinese aggression. Take a listen.
What's your assessment of an increasingly aggressive China? Well, unfortunately, it's not the Chinese people. They're the victims of a very aggressive, authoritarian Chinese Communist Party. It's Taiwan, South China Sea, the Philippines, India, Tibet, the United States, Australia. This really is a destabilizing force across the Indo-Pacific, and I think like-minded democracies working in partnership together, whether that's co-production of defense, working together in space, IT, technology, across the board will deter that type of aggression and make it clear to the Chinese Communist Party that they can't get away with it.
With key immigration hardliners slated to serve in senior roles, Trump appears right on track to bring his deportation vows to action. Reports indicate Trump has selected South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem as the next Homeland Security Secretary. With his selection of Noem, Trump will ensure that she will head an agency that is key to his domestic agenda. If we look at other key roles in Trump 2.0, the seat for the White House Chief of Staff has already been filled by Susie Wiles, and Trump is now reportedly expected to announce that Stephen Miller will serve as the Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy. Miller is Trump's top immigration advisor, and he has served as his lead speechwriter during his first stint. He has been a leading advocate for a more restrictive immigration policy and is expected to take on an expanded role in the president-elect's second term. Miller is also a lead architect of the president-elect's plan for mass deportation of undocumented immigrants. Staffing plays a significant role in every new administration and offers ideological clues to how the White House will act on issues. However, nothing might be permanent given the former president's history of turnover aides. We have with us John Ports, professor of political science at Northeastern University with us. Thank you so much for joining us on WION. President-elect Donald Trump seems to be ready to tackle major issues here in the United States, and he's very fast with picking different people for different posts. Is this unique or different, this pace that he's taking from different administrations?
I don't know that I would say it's unique. It's certainly different than 8 years ago when he came into office. He was not prepared at that point, but this time he certainly was. He had transition groups working and looking at staffing possibilities. So I think he was ready to move forward. So it's not unique, but he's definitely on the end of an aggressive path here to get people into his administration.
And how do you assess the former, President-elect Donald Trump's administration with India, given Mike Waltz in the past has identified India as a key ally? Are we going to see something different from what we saw with the Biden administration?
You know, it's possible. I find in your earlier comments and the quotes that you had from Waltz and others, it is interesting that Marco Rubio, in particular, Waltz, both of them have a past in which they were, rather aggressive hardliners on foreign policy issues, and to some degree interventionist in a way. And yet that has not been Trump's path. He's tended to be more, as you say, America first, and less inclined, although he will put himself personally saying, I will solve this problem, I will solve that problem. But there's a reticence to get in the international scene. But with respect to India, I think it could put India in a more spotlight. Walt's thinking, seeing that as a key to, in part containing China, I think is the main issue there.
Yeah, it was really interesting that he sidelined Mike Pompeo. Nikki Haley wasn't that big of a surprise in many ways. But again, Senator Cotton, he decided not to be part of the administration either. Apparently, it was his choice. Do you think that Trump's picks right now reflect his pre-poll promises of confronting China, backing Israel, and being more hardline against Iran?
I think it could very well. In picking cabinet people like this, cabinet and other key advisors, for Trump, loyalty is going to be a main criteria. That's not a surprise to anyone. I think you also want people with experience, and he's doing that. And sometimes in this process, president-elects will think about constituencies that they need to meet, satisfy. I think that's less the case here. But I think it is posing as you say, a more kind of hardline approach in foreign affairs than one might have expected, given Trump's kind of language throughout the election.
Very interesting. Professor, thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to speaking to you again.
Okay, my pleasure.